Well, everybody, we're talking about a state today that doesn't often come up in any type of discussion. And that is, of course, Wisconsin. I really only ever find myself talking about Wisconsin in the context of that 70s show. Any based people in chat ever seen that show? Do you guys enjoy that show? I like it. I personally really like it. Wisconsin, never been there before, but I do know that there's a fair amount of ruralness, right? Quite a bit of land, far from cities and large skyscrapers and high tax income schools. You know, a lot of that in Wisconsin, which tends to lead to a lot of people who vote far right and hold some pretty radical right-wing beliefs. For example, to give you an idea, here in Washington where I live in Seattle, right? I live in the heart of the city. So because of that, I am surrounded by a lot of progressivism, a lot of left-wing people, a lot of like liberal voters, a lot of people of color, a lot of like gay and trans people. Not really, you wouldn't really consider it a place with a lot of chuds or a very unaccepting area, right? But if you go east and you go out of Seattle and into the woods and then into the foothills of the Cascade Mountains, things really quickly start to change, especially north of Seattle too. Like between Seattle and Olympia and out east of there, everything east of Seattle is some of the most deep red, conservative, redneck, country bumpkin. I could go on with these stereotypes. Racist shit you will ever imagine. There are Confederate flags. There are Trump signs galore. And just hick scum, exactly. Tons of hick scum off to the east of Seattle. And these people, I've talked about many times how they stockpile guns and they plan to have like their big day of the rope where they roll into the cities and they, execute all the people of color and all the people who dare to disagree with them and vote Democrat. I don't think this will ever actually happen. The closest that we ever really get to this is when they roll into a town or a city for a big protest. And the reason I brought up Wisconsin, of course, is because that is exactly what happened in the state's capital yesterday. A big group of neo-Nazis marched on the Capitol. I got a YouTube video here of a news story from, what news station is this? WISN, like Wisconsin 12 News. So, yeah, they covered this story, and, I'd rather look at this than have to read the article to get the same amount of information, so here we go.
Breaking tonight, the Madison Police Department says it is monitoring a neo-Nazi group that marched near the Capitol this afternoon. The video you're about to see shows the group carrying flags with swastikas. Now, we blurred those flags and we also muted the video.
Well, why? Why? No. Okay. Something that cannot happen. Something we cannot let happen. Okay. All right. Chat, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson. The term political correctness has actually been butchered and mutilated and warped and mutated into something different from its original usage and meaning. The term political correctness used to refer to when generally like conservative politicians and capitalist business owners would rename words that very clearly got across the seriousness of like the thing that it's describing, the thing that the word means, when they would try to rename that for their own benefit, usually to soften the language, right? A good example of this is quiet quitting. We've seen like corporate like types try to use the word quiet quitting for when employees just do what is on the requirements to get the job, right? Instead of going above and beyond and doing more than what they're paid to do, I guess. They call it quiet quitting. It's a euphemism. It's a politically correct way of saying we don't want our employees We want our employees working harder, and we don't want to pay them more. That's actual definitional political correctness. So what's happening here, where we're blurring the swastikas on the flags of the neo-Nazi like marchers, and we're like muting their words, that is dangerous levels of political correctness, in the same way that I think, yeah, I feel I don't like that. Doesn't that count as malicious compliance? No. I feel that people need to see, holy these are neo-Nazis. That's not just far-right people carrying Trump flags or whatever. That is a full-on German Nazi flag that guy is carrying around. Oh, shit. He is screaming, Hail Hitler. And, like, do you know why? Guys, this has literally become one of the most universally recognizable signs and symbols of, like, hate and bigotry ever. Can you imagine if the coverage and dissemination of this video and story were heavily censored to the extent that that it just didn't hit as hard as this does? Simply showing this video was enough evidence to show the fact that we were allowing the far right too much leniency and freedom in this country to get, like, to publicly display unabated. Look at this. You will not replace us! You will not replace us! You will not replace us! You will not replace us!
A group of white nationalists held a torch-lit rally in downtown Charlottesville Saturday, 2 months after an Ohio man allegedly killed a woman when he drove his car into a crowd of counter-protesters. Alt-right activist Richard Spencer was reportedly at Saturday's march protesting the fate of a Robert E. Lee statue. A court recently blocked its removal after a recent legal challenge. Police say
recently, I believe they melted down that statue after it was successfully removed. So yeah, anyway, yeah, like this story, the video of these guys marching and screaming with their tiki torches, yelling, "Jews will not replace us, blood and soil," that really resonated with people, not obviously with them. It resonated with people, the fact that shit has gotten serious. You have to understand, this happened in like 2017, if I recall correctly. Maybe it was 2017. That was a time when you had everyone from Shuonhead and Chris Ray Gun to Sargon of Akkad and Richard Spencer basically on the same area of YouTube, all saying the same words. The left calls everyone Nazis now. Everybody in that sphere was saying those same words. The left calls everyone a Nazi now. The word has lost its meaning. And then here we had these guys from the Unite the Right rally, a group of people which, by the way, were full of many of those same figures who once stood side by side with more liberal, left-leaning, and centrist, like anti-SJW YouTubers, were there at this rally making excuses for the behavior, allying with these people, befriending them, and defending them. There was no more denial of the fact that these people are actual Nazis. It's not that the left just calls anyone Nazis when they disagree. It's that these people are actually Nazis. They always were, and it was always obvious if you were willing to pay attention.
Because a bystander was chanting profanities. Now, the video shows the group wearing masks and shirts that say Blood Tribe. They're standing outside the Wisconsin State Capitol. You can see police are patrolling the area. According to the Madison Police Department's Facebook post, about 20 people carrying the flags walked up State Street to the Capitol building. Police did not see any weapons. Now, the police department says they do not support hateful rhetoric. However, they also say they are obligated to protect First Amendment rights for everyone. Governor Tony.
That's the same thing that Ron DeSantis has said about the neo-Nazi guys that protest outside Disney World. In Florida, there's this, like, I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World before in Florida, but there's like one giant entrance, like one big main entrance, and it's got like the big, like, facade sign with the big Disney World welcome to adventure or whatever. Like, I forget what their little slogan is they have below the like logo on their sign. And there's like a sidewalk right next to the sign, like right in front of it. That sidewalk is up against the road. It is technically state property. It's public property. It's the sidewalk. You're allowed to demonstrate there. You're allowed to protest there. And so neo-Nazis have used that to protest outside of Disney World. So imagine this. You're a parent taking your kids to Disney World for the first time. Like, you've got your, like, 6-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid in the back seat. You're taking them to Disney World for the first time. You pull up. You're not really tapped into politics. You don't really know what's going on in the world of politics because you're not, like, super into shit. You don't know how bad it's gotten. And this is what you see as you pull up to Disney. And I assure you, Disney can do nothing about this. The police will do nothing about it, and Ron DeSantis has defended them with the exact same words as the police commissioner who defended the Nazis in Wisconsin's capital.
Look
Look at that. Look at that. That's what you see.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what...
Fully legal and endorsed by the governor of Florida. Fully legal and endorsed by the governor of Florida. Yeah, the most magical place on earth is the slogan on the sign, yeah. So yeah, no, the police just completely allow this kind of stuff. It's ironic that it's only ever, like, progressive people protesting when that ever becomes, like, this massive media frenzy about riots and stuff. Meanwhile, like, literal Trump supporters, goaded by the president, attempt a coup and attempt mass assassination of multiple elected officials in the Capitol building. And, like, you're basically obsessed is the accusation if you still talk about it a couple years later. Oh, yeah, we supported a coup and all that, a fascist coup, but if you still talk about that 2 years later or whatever, you're obsessed. Unironically, the kind of shit these people say. I like, the right-wingers try to argue that if you still talk about Jan 6, then you're obsessed or you can't get over it. They try to shame you for daring to discuss it or talk about it like it's a relevant thing of discussion. Yet, meanwhile, they're still posting about how all the insurrectionists who were imprisoned and charged on Jan 6th are victims that need to be freed.
Evers released a statement saying, quote, "Let us be clear, neo-Nazis, anti-Semitism, and white supremacy have no home in Wisconsin. We will not accept or normalize this rhetoric and hate."
Then do something about it. Then make it so that, like, the citizens of that town, the children going to school, don't have to see swastikas. Make it so the Jewish kids going to school that, like, in the morning don't have to see neo-Nazis with swastikas on their flags, the flag of the regime that genocided 6 million Jewish people, and many more other groups as well. At least 6 million people. Like, why are you're giving them the home? You're allowing it. Like, you can say they have no home here, but they objectively do.
Another video shows the group continuing their march along one of the lakes around Madison. In this video, they're marching in silence. Now, the Jewish Community Relations Council in Milwaukee Jewish Federation asked that anyone...
How fucking worth and funny would it be to get, like, 30 of your best buds together and just to mob on these guys and knock them off the seawall out of nowhere? Just hide in the bushes and behind a bunch of trees. And then whenever they get to, like, an opportune spot, you all charge at once and just, like, shoulder bash them off of the pier into the water. And then just run. Just book it. Me and the boys. That's what I want to do for a Xanderhal fan event. For the fan meetup event. They have no weapons. Yeah, they're unarmed. Unless they're conceal carrying.
The Jewish Community Relations Council in Milwaukee Jewish Federation asked that anyone who encounters group like these should ignore them and not amplify their messages. Tonight at 10, hear from the Jewish community at UW-Madison and why they say...
Ah, good. I'm sure we're going to hear some pro-Israels. I'm sure we will find a way to, instead of talking about why it's a problem that Nazis feel empowered to march the streets and why the state is allowing this, I'm sure we're going to talk about why this is actually the fault of Hamas and the people who are pro-Palestine in some way. I'm pretty certain that's what they're going to go to. Jesus. Like, this is actually shameful, dude. They're going to blame Palestinians for it. Yeah, it's actually shameful that they're not doing something about it. Yes, you have freedom of speech, you have freedom of demonstration, but I think when it comes to parading around with Nazi flags, that kind of borders on yelling fire in a crowded theater. I feel like there's a difference between representing your freedom of speech and that we actually have legal, in a lot of states, we have legal allowances for something called fighting words, right? Like, if you said certain things to somebody, like, I'm gonna kill you, then that other person you said it to now has legal justification to like, fight you because you've threatened them or said something to them that indicates enough antagonism that they could reasonably feel threatened, right? Or like, hey, you, let's fight, you know, fighting words. So I would say that you would consider, like, a sign that says, I'm going to kill you. Like a guy who just has a sign and waves it in people's face that says, I'm going to murder you. That would be considered fighting words. It doesn't matter whether it's written or said, right? Like, that it's still the same words. A flag literally just represents that same sentiment. The Nazi flag is just a physical, visual, audible representation of the sentiment, I want to kill you. To particular people, at least. That is the message. Critical said if you say, I feel threatened and you have witnesses, you can do anything you want in Florida, lol. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's the case at all. But yeah, actually shameful of the governor of Wisconsin and, of course, the police for allowing this. Genuinely shameful. No, neo-Nazis clearly do have a home in Wisconsin. Don't care what the governor says. It's clearly a virtue signal. What's obvious is that the neo-Nazis really obviously do have a home there.